It was a Monday afternoon at Whitmore Memorial Hospital, and Sarah Whitmore was about to have the worst coffee spill of her life. She stood in the main lobby, dressed simply in slacks and a white blazer, waiting for the elevator. That's when Madison Pierce burst into her world. 23 years old, wearing a designer mini dress and bright red heels, Madison was too busy filming her TikTok live stream to notice anyone around her. She crashed straight into Sarah, and her $8 latte exploded all over Sarah's white vest. Madison glanced down at the mess, then up at Sarah's face, and actually laughed. "Watch where you're going, old hag," she said, without a hint of apology. Sarah stood there, dripping with coffee, speechless. But Madison wasn't done. She spun her camera around to face Sarah and announced to her thousands of followers, "Do you know who I am? I'm Mrs. Brett Whitmore, the CEO's wife." Sarah looked directly into that camera, and the smallest smile crossed her lips. "Really?" she said, her voice calm as glass. "Then you won't mind if I call my husband, right now." 12 hours earlier, Sarah had been 30,000 feet in the air, flying business class from Frankfurt to Boston. She was reading an anonymous email on her phone, and attached to it was a photo that made her blood run cold. Her husband, Brett, wrapped around a young woman at the Ritz-Carlton. The message was simple. "Your husband is using hospital funds. Check the wire transfers." Sarah pulled up a contract on her iPad. A $12 million purchase order for a new MRI machine. She stared at the numbers, then closed her eyes and took a slow breath. She didn't call Brett. She didn't cry. Instead, when her plane landed, she changed directions. She didn't go home. She drove straight to the hospital. Because Sarah Whitmore had learned a long time ago that the best weapon isn't rage, it's silence. And she was about to use it like a knife. 5 years ago, at their wedding on Martha's Vineyard, Sarah's father, Robert Whitmore, had made a decision. He handed his son-in-law the CEO position of the family hospital, right there at the reception. Sarah stood behind them in her wedding dress, watching, saying nothing. Later that week, she signed the power of attorney papers her father put in front of her. She also signed documents that hid her true ownership stake in the company. Nobody knew the real numbers. Not Brett. Not the board. Not even her father's lawyers understood what she'd actually inherited. Cut to the present, 3 months ago, in the hospital's boardroom. The male board members sat around the table, and one of them smiled at her like she was a child. "You should focus on having a baby, Sarah," he said. "Not contracts." She nodded. She didn't argue. She just filed that memory away with all the others, because Sarah had learned that powerful women don't need to shout. They just need to wait. Back in the hospital lobby, just 20 feet away from where Madison had spilled her coffee, Dr. Ethan Ross was fighting to save a man's life. He was doing chest compressions right there on the marble floor, his shirt soaked with sweat, counting compressions out loud. This was what a real emergency looked like, but Madison didn't care. She kept filming her live stream, complaining loudly about how inconvenient this all was. Walter, the 62-year-old security guard, approached her carefully. "Miss, please lower your voice," he said. "This is a hospital." Madison rolled her eyes and laughed into her camera. "Relax, everyone," she said. "When I'm officially Mrs. Whitmore, he's the first person I'm firing." The people in the lobby started to notice. Some pulled out their phones. This was about to get ugly. Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm and clear. "Hospital policy forbids filming in the lobby," she said. "Please turn it off." Madison's eyes lit up like she'd just found her next viral moment. She zoomed the camera right into Sarah's face. "Look at this Karen, everyone," she announced to her followers. Bitter, old, jealous. She pointed at the coffee stain spreading across Sarah's vest. "What's wrong, honey? Is dry cleaning too expensive for you?" Then she held up her left hand, showing off a massive diamond ring. "My fiancé just bought me a penthouse in Back Bay. $4.8 million, cash." The crowd was growing now. People were recording on their own phones. Madison delivered her final blow, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "Brett told me he upgraded. Younger. Better. No offense. Sarah stood perfectly still. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, and that's what scared Madison most. Madison decided to push harder. She deliberately bumped into Sarah again, this time spilling her second coffee all over her own Hermes Birkin bag. Then she threw herself onto the floor, her scream echoing through the marble lobby. The performance was worthy of an Oscar. She clutched her stomach and started crying, looking directly into her phone camera. "She attacked me," Madison screamed. "I'm pregnant. She's trying to hurt my baby." The crowd split instantly. Some people rushed toward Madison. Others stepped back, uncertain. Sarah hadn't moved an inch. She hadn't touched Madison. But Madison was selling the story of her life, tears streaming down her face, one hand on her belly, the other holding her phone high. The lobby erupted into chaos. Dr. Ethan Ross had just saved his patient's life. The ambulance was loading the man up as Ethan walked over, still catching his breath. He looked at Madison on the floor, then at Sarah, standing perfectly calm. "You claimed a medical emergency," Ethan said to Madison. "That gives me legal authority to examine you." Madison's eyes went wide. "Don't touch me," she shouted, scrambling backward. Ethan pulled out his phone, reading from her chart. "According to your own medical records, Madison, you had 3 espresso shots this morning. That's interesting for someone who's supposedly 8 weeks pregnant." He paused, letting that sink in. "Also, your chart shows you had your menstrual cycle 10 days ago." The lobby went silent. Every phone camera was pointed at Madison now. Her face went from red to white in about 2 seconds. Madison stood up slowly, brushing off her dress. Her whole demeanor changed. The crying stopped. The victim act disappeared. "Enough games," she said, her voice hard now. She held up her engagement ring, letting it catch the light. "I'm the future Mrs. Whitmore. This hospital will belong to me." She pointed at Sarah with a perfectly manicured finger. "And you? You're nobody here." Then she pulled out her phone and called Brett. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. The confidence started draining from her face. Sarah just watched, still silent, still waiting. Sarah calmly wiped the coffee off her vest. Then she pulled out her own phone and dialed. She put it on speaker. Brett's voice filled the lobby. "Sarah? I thought you weren't landing until tonight." "There's a woman here at the hospital," Sarah said, her voice clear and steady. "She's claiming to be your wife." Dead silence on the other end. Sarah looked at Madison while she spoke. "You have 5 minutes to get down here, or I make a different phone call." She hung up. Madison's face had gone completely pale. Around them, everyone in that lobby knew something massive was about to happen, and every single one of them kept recording. 4 minutes later, Brett Whitmore burst through the hospital doors. Madison ran toward him, arms outstretched. "Baby," she started to say. Brett's hand flew across her face. The slap echoed through the lobby. Madison hit the floor hard. "I don't know this woman," Brett announced to everyone watching. "She's delusional. Probably needs psychiatric help." Madison looked up at him from the floor, blood trickling from her lip, confusion and rage mixing on her face. "You promised," she screamed. "You said once she signs the revised shareholder agreement, we'd have everything." Brett's face went white. Around them, dozens of phones captured every word. He just confessed to everything, and he didn't even realize it yet. Sarah pulled out her iPad and connected it to the large screen on the lobby wall. Usually it displayed patient information and hospital announcements. Now it showed something else: bank transfers. 47 transactions over 6 months, totaling $2.3 million, all going to one Madison Pierce. Another transfer, $4.8 million. Purchase of a penthouse on Newbury Street. Then came the emails. Brett to Madison. "Once she signs the new agreement, we'll control 60% of the hospital. Then we can finally be together." Dr. Ethan Ross stepped forward, holding a tablet. "I ran an audit this morning," he said. "These funds were taken from the hospital's patient insurance reimbursement account. The lobby was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system humming, Every eye was on Brett. Brett dropped to his knees. "Sarah, please," he said, his voice breaking. "I was weak. She seduced me. I made a mistake." Madison scrambled over on her knees too. "I'll disappear," she said desperately. "I'll give everything back. Delete all the messages. Nobody has to know." Sarah looked down at both of them. Her husband of 5 years, his mistress of 6 months, both on their knees in front of 200 witnesses and countless phone cameras. She felt nothing, not anger, not satisfaction, just a cold, clear certainty about what came next. "I need to correct something," Sarah said, her voice carrying through the silent lobby. "Brett doesn't own 60% of this hospital. He doesn't own 40%. Or 20%. She looked directly at him. "You own exactly 0%. I own 78%. My father left it all to me." She turned to Walter, the security guard Madison had threatened to fire. "Please escort Mr. Whitmore off the property. He no longer works here." Then, she looked at Madison. "You have 10 minutes to leave Boston. If you're still in the city after that, my lawyers will file charges for fraud, theft, and extortion." Sarah turned and walked toward the elevator. Behind her, Brett was screaming. Madison was crying. Cameras were flashing. And Sarah pressed the button for the top floor. The video went viral within hours. 30 million views by midnight. 50 million by the next morning. Brett was arrested 3 days later. Federal charges for embezzlement and wire fraud. Madison disappeared, but not before her TikTok account was permanently banned and her penthouse was seized. The hospital board held an emergency meeting. Sarah sat at the head of the table for the first time. "Gentlemen," she said, "we need to discuss the future of this organization." Nobody told her to focus on having a baby. Nobody questioned her authority. Because they'd all seen the video. They all knew who really owned that building. And Sarah Whitmore was just getting started. 2 weeks later, Dr. Ethan Ross knocked on Sarah's office door. "Come in," she said, not looking up from her paperwork. Ethan sat down across from her. "I need to tell you something," he said. "I sent you that anonymous email, the one with Brett's photo." Sarah finally looked up. "I know," she said. "Why?" Ethan met her eyes. "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because this hospital deserves better leadership." He paused. "I've admired you for years, Sarah. The way you carry yourself. Your integrity." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "I appreciate that, Ethan, but I'm not ready for anything beyond professional respect right now." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I'll be here when you are." He stood to leave. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly, "for the email, for your honesty, for everything." 5 years passed. Whitmore Memorial Hospital became the top-ranked facility in New England. Sarah's photo appeared on the cover of Forbes. Brett served 4 years, got released, and found work washing dishes at a restaurant in South Boston. One evening, Sarah's driver pulled up next to that restaurant. Through the kitchen window, she could see Brett scrubbing pots, his shoulders hunched, his expensive suits long gone. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Sarah felt nothing. No anger, no regret, not even pity. She'd moved on to a life he could never touch. She looked at her driver and said, "Let's go home." Because Sarah Whitmore had learned the most important lesson of all. The best revenge isn't watching your enemies fall. The best revenge is building something so beautiful, so successful, so undeniably yours that their downfall becomes irrelevant. The best revenge is living well.